You know the expression, that's a hard act to follow. Well, wow. I mean, what a great set of stories. I'm looking at all the storytellers on Zoom here. You know, why are you doing this to me? I've got to follow this act, and I want to tell you how I feel and how it makes me feel. And it brings to mind a situation. A friend of mine, Rob, says to me, "You've got to come to this concert. This is the Rolling Stones. You're going to love it." I'm not a rock and roll fan. I wasn't interested. He says, "But Sandy, this is a cultural phenomenon. You've got to see this concert. This might be the Rolling Stones' last concert. This is the end of their tour. There may never be another one." Well, I'm not really interested, but he is persistent, and finally I relent. And the tickets are more than double the cost that you'd pay for any other concert. Very expensive. Each ticket cost $10. It's 1975. And this is the Rolling Stones Tour of the Americas, their last performance in Buffalo at Rich Stadium. Now, they had already played Buffalo just a few weeks earlier at the auditorium. And I'm thinking, this promoter is crazy. Rich Stadium is so much larger. Now, okay, the tour had been in New York City and they'd played Madison Square Garden 6 times, 20,000 in each crowd, sellout crowds. That's 120,000 attendees in the course of 6 days. But that's New York City. There's 7.5 million people. We're talking about Buffalo, 400,000. How is he ever going to fill up a Rich Stadium? The promoter is crazy. Well, I go with my friend Rob. He says we should get there early. There's going to be a big crowd. And we get there quite early. And I'm amazed to see that the stadium is already half full and there's this continuous stream of people entering Rich Stadium. And the announcer says, "I'd like to introduce Captain Dynamite." And this guy comes up on the stage and he's got a coffin and he's wearing a jumpsuit and he's got a helmet. And he fills this coffin with dynamite and he gets himself nailed inside and boom, the coffin explodes and he gets out and he's dazed and dizzy and the crowd goes wild. You know, this is typical county fair stuff. I'm not especially impressed. And then the announcer comes on again to introduce the great Waldo Pepper. Now, 1975, the film, The Great Waldo Pepper, had come out that year. I had already seen it, starring Robert Redford, about an aerial acrobatic pilot, a barnstormer. And in the movie, this pilot, the great Waldo Pepper, he does an inside loop. This is where the plane comes in and flies around in a complete circle with the head, the pilot's head is pointing inside the circle. And he does an inside loop, very impressive. And then he's going to fly the outside loop. Now, this is much more dangerous. Pilots have died trying the outside loop. This is flying the same loop, but with the pilot's head pointing out. And there up in the sky, I see this biplane. And it's Frank Tallman, the stunt pilot who did the stunt in the movie. and he's flying overhead, and he does all sorts of twirls and spins, and then he dives down at the stadium upside down, and he does the outside loop, and this crowded stadium bursts into applause and cheers. This is phenomenal. And I'm thinking the promoter is crazy. This is better than the county fair, but he's setting us up for failure, because you just can't have one great thing after another. You should save it. And then the first opening act comes on. The first band comes on. It's a local band. I have no idea who they were, but they were good. And I'm thinking again, promoter is crazy. Well, Bobby Womack comes on, a bona fide big name in rock and roll, and he is terrific. And I'm thinking, nobody's going to want to follow that act. The promoter is crazy. He's setting us up for disappointment. And then the Outlaws come on. Well, nobody had ever heard of the Outlaws. Their album had just come out a few weeks ago, a few weeks prior to this concert. And they come on and they are just incredible. Nobody can follow that act. It's just, I've had enough. This has been great. I say, Rob, thanks for forcing me to come along. It's 9 o'clock. It's getting dark. This is early August. I'm going to go home. And he looks at me like I'm insane. And then I notice the lights go on the stage. It's kind of dark now. And I hadn't really paid attention to the stage before, but here it is. It's huge. It takes up the whole width of this football stadium. And there are towers on each side covered with this fabric. And it's all lit up. And the fabric is glowing and shimmering in this light. And then I see one little guy come out from behind the stage, and he's carrying a flagpole with this long streaming banner, maybe 30, 40 feet behind him, and he is swirling this banner around and running across the stage, one end to the other, and leaping and twirling and swirling. And Rob yells into my ear, Mick Jagger. And this tiny little guy on this huge stage, well, this stage wasn't big enough for him. He owns the stage. He owns the stadium. This guy doesn't know what it means to be reserved or restrained. He doesn't know humility. He is everything. He is energy. He is confidence. And I'm watching him. I am just amazed. And then the band suddenly appears on the stage as if by magic. I was so intent on following Mick Jagger, I didn't see them come onto the stage, and they start playing. And for the next 2 hours, it's nonstop, song after song. The 72,000 people are on their feet, singing and cheering and applauding. And then it's over. And nobody wants it to end. I don't want it to end. It was magic. And we don't want it to end, but nobody, nothing could follow that act. And that's how I'm feeling right now. Like I've got to follow the Rolling Stones. So I had a great time, and I hope you all enjoyed these stories as much as I did.
Oh, yay.
Yes.
Oh,